Speaker here comes with some rich history out of the rich experience, I should say, out of the automobile industry, and we are thankful to have him join us in the woodworking industry. He now currently serves as the director of Stiles University, where he oversees the education efforts internally and both externally with their customers. But today he's here to talk to us about generational collaboration. So please help me welcome to the stage Mr. Thomas Allott.
Thank you, I appreciate it. How's everyone doing today? Come on, how's everyone doing today? Okay, that's a little bit better. So as Doug said, I am here to talk to you about what I call generational collaboration. Right now, we work in a very interesting time. We've got 4 generations working side by side in industry. Not in modern industry has that ever been done before. And because of that, we've got some hurdles, we've got some challenges. So I want to talk about those a little bit today, but then I also want to give you guys some takeaways to be able to take back to your shops, take back to your factories, and implement straight away. So a little agenda. We want to identify what generations are out there, how we define them, how you define them, so forth and so on. We'll talk a little bit about individualization, what makes those generations who they are and act a certain ways they do. Then we'll talk a little bit about impact. What has made those generations act the same way they do? Talking about life, talking about tragedy, technology, you name it. The next one we'll talk about is separation. This is the biggest issue that we have right now, is that we're separating ourselves from each other within the generations. And then we'll talk a little bit about collaboration. How can we remove those barriers and start working better together in order to make more money, and work better? And then lastly, I'll give you guys some tools to execute and make sure that you're taking away something from this presentation to put straight away into your business. So first, let's talk a little bit about identification. I'm just going to say this now. Read on Facebook, read on Google, whatever your sources are. Everyone identifies the generations a little bit differently, but the generation separator, if you will, that I'm going to use is part of the Pew Research Center. But before we get into that, I want to ask a little question of what generation this came from, right? I'll read it to you guys. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority, they show disrespect for elders, and love chatter in the place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter their room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up dainties at their table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers. Now from the audience, can I get a generation? Go ahead. Baby boomer. Can I get another one? Whitney. Millennials. Adria. The Great Depression one, I think that would be the boomers. Gen Xers. I'm going to tell you this right now, you're all wrong. This is from Socrates, 469 to 399 BC. So what I'm telling you guys is nothing new, right? Every single generation has always pointed at the next generation, talking about how bad they are, how they're lazy, so forth and so on. It's nothing new. But let's get into some identification real quick. First one I want to identify is the boomers. Can I get a show of hands if we have any boomers in here? This is born between 46 and 64. All right, let's move on to our Gen Xers. This is born between 1965 and 1980. Can I get a raise of hands? Got a couple Gen Xers in here. The next one is everyone's favorite one to poke holes at, the millennial generation. How many millennials do I have in here? Raise them proud, I'm one too. There we go, we got some good numbers. And the last one, which is the really scary one, is the Gen Z. And the Gen Z is now being called Alpha, which is even scarier because that sounds like an alien. They're born between 1997 and 2012. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is how everyone right now is identifying what generations people are in, and they're pointing at them and putting labels on them, right? Millennials, they're lazy, they don't do anything. Boomers, they don't know technology, they're slow. We're all pointing fingers and it's causing issues. So what I want to start talking about is impact. What has made us act the way that we do? What has made us live the way that we live? Spend the way that we spend? So forth and so on. And the first one I want to talk about is life, right? Life as a whole. What I want you guys to focus on, I know this is a very busy slide, but if you look at the bottom, this is a sliding scale based on the generations and what generations have experienced what. So let's start with our boomers down here, all the way back to 1945, right? We're talking Iwo Jima and Vietnam, two huge monumental time periods within our decades. Those caused us to be one of the best manufacturing countries in the entire world. Does anyone know why? Because people left high school and they went straight into the forces. We needed boots on the ground in foreign countries to help us fight our wars. Well, when those boots came back home, back on our soil, they didn't have time to go to school. They had to jump straight into labor, straight into manufacturing, straight into skilled trades. So we had a boom of skilled labor back then. Then we move on and we start going to President John F. Kennedy being assassinated. This changed the way that we access our public officials. We can no longer call our public officials straight away, go up to our public officials and shake their hands without a security detail being around, right? This changed the way that we have an impact on our public officials and how they impact our country. The next one is the Nixon scandal. This is the first public collusion in the government that we experienced. This changed the way that we trusted our government. This changed the way that we got information. We started to see a little bit of a separation between the right wing and the left wing. And this, again, impacted the way that we live our lives. After that was the Berlin Wall coming down. That was a huge success overseas. But what did that do for us? It made us look like the helper all the time. So not only do we have to fight our own wars on our own soil, but now we have to help anyone that is struggling throughout the world. It's our first democratic victory overseas, and we continue to see that in the Middle East now, that we're constantly helping other countries while also trying to better ourselves. After that is 9/11, one of the saddest days in history. It's the first terrorist attack on our soil, right? First time anyone's ever come in, kicked down our door, and exposed us. This changed a lot for us. Who here flew to Vegas? What did you guys do as soon as you got to the airport? Went through security. You can no longer walk all the way up to the gate with your family members. You have to say, see you later at the door. Who here goes to sporting events? What do you do when you go to a sporting event now? You go through security. We have to make sure that we're in a safe environment when we get large masses of people together now. Once again, this changed the way that we live our lives. The financial crisis impacted us because it changed the way that we invest our money. We no longer trust the banks. We no longer trust the stock market because it's risky, because the trust has been broken. And then finally, the debacle in 2016, right? Right wing, left wing, the biggest separation we've ever seen in U.S. history within the government. We've got families breaking apart because one has one view and one has the other. And who's driving that? The media. They're creating separation. So my point with this slide is that if you look at the bottom, right, all of us have experienced different events throughout our lives that have made us understand the way that the life that we're living is. So our millennials or our Gen Zs, all they know is collusion within government. The Gen Zs, all they know is that, hey, I have to walk in through security when I go to an airport, or I have to walk through security when I go to a sporting event. They've never experienced not doing that. So what life events we've lived through really impact the way that we act. The next one I want to talk about is technology. Please raise your hand if you do not have a smartphone. My point exactly. Every single person on this planet probably has a smartphone at this point. But look at the sliding graph on the bottom. I'm not going to go through this in detail because it'll take me quite a while. We started off with DOS computers, right? Putting in a floppy drive, coding the computer, telling it what to do. Then we moved on to the personal device, right? So we've got personal laptops, personal cell phone. This thing called texting comes out. Who knew that a phone could actually make phone calls now? Then we start moving on to the tablet and smartphone era, right? We've now taken 3 devices, a fax machine, a computer, and a telephone, and put them into the same device. We don't need those other machines anymore because we can do everything from our tablet or our smartphone. And now we're moving on into the virtual world and the wearable world, as it's called. Who here has a smartwatch? Please raise your hand. Right? You don't need to check your phone anymore because all I have to do is, I got a text. Right? So we're evolving faster and faster. But look at this slide again. The boomers, the Gen X's, and even some of the millennials, they've all experienced new, right? They've all experienced mobile, the mobile revolution, if you'll call it that. But our Gen Zers, our alphas, they're born into this. They're born into the mobile world. This is why when we talk about workplace comfortability or workplace balance, they're used to working off their laps. They're used to working off their tablets. They don't want to sit in a desk for 8 hours a day. They want to move because they're used to mobile devices. And then the next one I want to talk about, this is, I think, is the most important one, is impact via information. So look all the way to the far left. You've got 1945, and you've got 2 sources of information, right? Technically 3. You've got the media, whether it be radio, TV, or newspaper, or you've got literature, college pages, authors, publications, things like that. But the information that you found in those documents, you had to trust because there was this much of it. Let's fast forward to 1995. This crazy thing called Google and Ask Jeeves comes out. Who remembers AskJeeves.com? Do you still use it? No, you use Google now, right? So that came out, and now people start being able to search things, but also people start to publish things that maybe aren't true. This fake news is starting to become more and more of a reality. And so when I ask Whitney, I say, hey, Whitney, how tall is Mount Everest? And she says, 16,595 feet. And then I say, Adria, how tall is Mount Everest? And she goes, 35,000. Both of them are right at this point, right? Because they had the information provided to them. Then we fast forward to 2005. The social media craze starts to come out, right? Who had a MySpace here? My MySpace had Headstrong by Trapped as my background song. But we start to get into this point where all of us are authors, right? We're all now publishing information and sharing information. And now when I say, hey, Adria, how tall is Mount Everest? Well, Johnny says it's this tall, right? So all of us are authors, and we're getting more and more information fed into us that we have to process. Now we fast forward into the YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram era, which I like to call the era of the influencer, right? People are making money now by posting things on social media that is information for you to take, to process, that may not be true, right? So we're getting hit more and more and more with information, and it's harder and harder to process. But the strange thing is we're going to go backwards in a little bit, and we're going to start simplifying things, because now we're in the generation of the virtual assistant, right? Who here has a Alexa or a Google Home or a smart TV or something along that lines, right? What do you do when you need to know something? Hey Google, what do I cook salmon to? Hey Google, turn my TV on. Hey Google. So now you're getting back to that single source of information, right? So what my point with that slide is, Can I get a little help, guys? My point with this slide is it's all irrelevant. No, I'm just joking. Point with this slide is we don't have to memorize things anymore, right? In the past, we had to read a book and we had to memorize it, and then that was our source of information. Now, we just find it. We just find the information, we get our answers that we need, and then we remove it from our brains because we don't need it anymore. So now I want to start talking about our separation, right? What's actually happening in the world. So because of all these life events, because of all these technology changes and all these informational impacts, we've started to see silos pop up, right? Millennials are lazy. They don't have a good work ethic. They hardly put in an 8-hour day. Boomers are slow. They don't know technology. They're workaholics. And we're just separating each other, right? Well, what is this causing? First of all, it's causing a drop in productivity. I don't want to work with that boomer because he's too slow. I don't want to work with that millennial because he doesn't know anything and he's going to expect me to use some kind of contraption or technology to do the work, right? Productivity is starting to drop. The next thing is we're increasing tribal knowledge. Who here knows what tribal knowledge is? Tribal knowledge is knowledge of a business process or a best practice that one person knows that they're not sharing with the other, right? So because of this separation, we're having a communication issue, which means that the person that's worked at the company for 20 years is not sharing the information with the person that's worked at the company for a year. We're increasing tribal knowledge and dropping productivity. The next thing we're doing is we're halting innovation, right? Because we've got these silos and we've got this separation, we're not sharing ideas with anyone anymore because we're threatened. We're threatened by that next generation. We're threatened by the previous generation. We're shoving ourselves down into a stagnant period and halting innovation. And the last thing is that we are scaring people away, right? We're not changing, we're not evolving to encompass everyone. This is the way you do it, and we're going to stick to it because this has worked forever, right? We're scaring away good talent, and it's hurting us. So who's depressed? I promise we'll start talking about some happy things. Next, I want to start talking about collaboration, working together, removing those barriers, and removing the first slide that I showed you with everyone in their own silos, right? Who played with one of these as a child? You can always tell the people that didn't play with these when you see them on the airplane trying to shove the suitcase above the seat and it just doesn't fit, right? Stop it, put a pink tag on it, you'll get it when you land. Well, the object of this game was to what? Put the round peg into the round hole, right? Well, what happens if you start to put a square peg into that round hole? It starts to break, right? It doesn't fit. So why do we do this with our people, right? We take a round hole, we'll say a Gen Zer, and we try to put them, a round peg, sorry, and we'll put them in a square hole, a boomer process. It doesn't work, right? We're going to break our people, and we're going to end up losing them because we're not adapting the process. How many people are familiar with Apollo 13 and what happened? Has anyone seen the movie? You will remember this clip. This clip that's going to play.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module,
5 filters on a limb.
which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc,
You're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
we take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't the contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole.
Fit a square peg into a round hole.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going, too.
Better get some coffee going is right. So I don't know if you guys heard or could understand what's going on. So within the command module, it was set up for 2 people, right? They ended up having 3 people within the command module, which means they're going through oxygen a lot faster than if it was just 2. The issue was the oxygen scrubber in the command module is a round circle, and they ran out of those filters. So they had to get a scrubber filter, which works in the other compartments, to be able to fit into that hole. So what did they do? Here are the 2 examples of the filters, right? One square, one round, fitting the square peg into the round hole. They didn't take apart it. They didn't rip it apart, shove it in, try to make it work that way. They adapted the process. They ended up making something like this. They made an adaptation so that that square filter can do the job that it needs to, right? That it can scrub the air to keep the people alive. Didn't break it down, didn't ask it to change. They changed the process. So if NASA can do this, why can't we? Because everyone that works for you or works with you is a unique individual, right? They're all parts of a unique puzzle that fit together and eventually make this beautiful mosaic. And you're probably asking yourself, well, why do I need to change? Well, here's why. This is the current state of the U.S. Workforce market right now. So you've got a total of 25% boomers, 34% Gen Xers, 36% millennials, and 5% Gen Zs. Well, let's fast forward about 10 years. Okay, so I'll answer the question after. Let's fast forward about 10 years, and now you've got 75% millennials, 15% Gen X, 3% boomers, and 7% Gen Z. So if you do not start adapting soon, you will fail. But now I'm going to provide you with some simple solutions to take back to your offices and your factories that will help you make these changes. So this is my team, Stiles University, right? As you can see, we're made up of a lot of different generations. We've got boomers, we've got Xers, we've got millennials. We don't have any Gen Zs yet. But we all managed to work together. And these are some things that we put in place to make this happen. First of all, let's find each other's strengths, right? Not everyone needs to have the same strengths. If people have the same strengths, you're not going to progress. You need an all-star in processing. You need an all-star in building. You need an all-star in design. Make sure you know each other's strengths and where they fit. The next one is currency. And I'm not talking money. I'm talking languages. How do people like to communicate with each other? Does one person like to receive emails with a lot of information? Or does one person like to receive a phone call with a little bit of information? Learn how to talk to each other so that you can interpret, understand, and execute a lot faster. This way, when you get that email from Becky in accounting, it's not like she's being rude. This is the way that she communicates to you, right? The next one is set up cross-generational mentorships, right? Set up cross-generational mentorships so that we reduce that tribal knowledge and increase innovation, right? Having people work together from different generations brings that base knowledge and that new technology innovation together to help us move forward. The next one is, does your workspace look like this? Is it outdated? Is it stagnant? Or are you creating an environment where people want to come, right? Your factories, do they have natural light? Hey guys, your factories, do you have natural light? Your work environments, do they improve collaboration? Or are they stagnant with booths? I don't know what's going on. There you go. The last thing is team building. Again, this is my team, and once a year we take 2 days off where no one works. All productivity shuts down. And what we do is we go off-site and we start working together. One of them is usually a charitable work, and the other one's the fun. So last year we went to Habitat for Humanity and we helped build a house. But the fun one was when we went to a high ropes course. And in this high ropes course, we learned more about each other than we will ever learn in an 8-hour day at work. And here's why. What you'll see is one of my employees, Ian, hanging about 45 feet up in the air. Right? He's new to the department at this point, been with us for about 2 weeks. What do you think's going through his mind right now? Panicking? Scared? The gentleman helping him, his name is Phil Lacey. He's been with the company for about 25 years, in my department for 20. So I've got cross-generational people right now helping each other. So watch Ian's face as Phil helps him get up. Yay! Sorry for that yell. So he just went from being absolutely scared, Ian, wave! To thrilled. And why? Because he knows that he can trust his teammates, right? He knows that Phil can come back and help him when he needs it. So when they do get in a dispute at work, guess what? He can reference back to this and say, hey, I know Phil's not out to get me. Phil's got my back. The last thing is to listen, understand, and execute. Listen to your people, understand what they're going through, and then help them continue to grow as individuals. I'm going to leave you guys with one last thought. I know I'm over time already. If I were to offer you a razor blade or an axe, which one would you take? Whitney. Whitney would take the axe. Adria. Depends. That is the correct answer. An axe is strong and can cut down a tree. A razor blade is sharp and it can shave a face. But a razor blade cannot cut down a tree and an axe cannot shave a face. They both have their own purposes. So the only time you're looking down at someone, it better be if you're admiring their shoes. Thank you, everyone.